Air Snickers Cake, fluffy, crunchy and delicious recipe. The sweetened condensed milk in this cake just gives the highlight. It's so good and delicious. So welcome back to our simple home. This Air Snickers Cake recipe is crunchy but still fluffy, and if you bite into the cake, it's so fluffy and so delicious. It's so good. I start with cooking 2 sweetened condensed milk, but you only need 1, so you don't need that much. But I always cook 2 and then use the other one later on for something else or the same cake another time. I start with removing the paper on the cans, and then I transfer the cans into my pot and then fill water in it, and then I cover it with a pressure cook lid, and then I just cook it. I cooked it this time once, but if you like to have it more thicker, you cook it twice. I separate 3 eggs. The egg white I put into a tall and small container, and the egg yolk I put into my mixing bowl. I add 3/4 cup of sugar. I mix it very well, and then I add 125 grams of butter. I mix it again. I add half a tablespoon of mayonnaise, 1½ cup of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Now I mix it very well again. There you go. So now I transfer it onto a plastic wrapping foil. I try to make it somehow even. Now I cut it into 3 equal pieces. If you're into it, you can measure it out to have it equal, but I just eyeball it. Now I wrap it up and put it into the fridge. Meanwhile, I whip up the 3 egg whites. If you want, you can add a pinch of salt to it. I prepared 1 cup of sugar. I check if it's stiff enough, and then I keep whisking it and slowly add the sugar into it, kind of a tablespoon by tablespoon, but I just pour it into it little bit by little bit. When the sugar is all in, I mix it a little bit longer to have it nice and mixed up. Then I put it aside and get out the dough from the fridge. I turn on the oven to 320 degrees Fahrenheit. I start unwrapping the plastic wrap from the dough, and then I take 1 piece of the dough and start rolling it out onto parchment paper. I use then my 10-inch cake ring, but if you don't have that, you can also just use a plate, the size you want to roll it out, and then put it on there and then cut it with a knife like that. But for now, I press the dough onto the parchment paper and then I start rolling it out into the size I like it to be. If you enjoyed this video so far, please like, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and share my videos with others. That means a lot to me and it supports my channel and me. It motivates me and helps me keep going. Thank you so much. I prefer to use a plastic wrapping foil, then it doesn't stick, the dough doesn't stick so much to my rolling pin, and it goes way easier to roll and it's faster done. So then I check it with my cake ring. I fix it here and there a little bit where I need to. I put the ring back on and double check, make sure everything is good. Then I press it a little down so I have a marking where the ring ends, and then I either add the dough to it where it can go to it, or I just remove it and stick it to the other ones. Once I have my round shape, I add 1/3 of the meringue cream onto this dough and just make it nice and fluffy on top of it. I don't go totally to the corner of the ring because it will, when you bake it, it will go farther out. So I just go like a tiny bit off from the corners. I transfer the cake layer back onto my baking sheet and then I transfer it into the oven. I bake it for 30 to 40 minutes. Meanwhile, I prepare the next layer. I press it back onto my parchment paper and then I roll it into a round shape. I add the plastic wrap foil again to easy rolling, and then I measure my cake ring, make sure it fits in there, press it a little bit, and then remove the leftover dough. I add the second third from the meringue on top on this layer. I spread it nice and fluffy so it looks good, and I make sure not to close to the edge of the circle. Once the first layer is baked, I take it out of the oven and put in the second layer into the oven, bake it again for 30 to 40 minutes, and then once it's baked, I do the same with the third layer. I bake the third layer also, and I made a little cake from the rest of it, but you don't have to, it's up to you. I ate it afterwards. So my sweetened condensed milk is all cooled off after I cooked it, and so I open it and it is a little more liquid than I would like to, but it's still okay. I stir it a little bit. In my mixing bowl, I add 180 grams of butter. I mix it to make it a little more fluffier or creamier, and then I add 300 grams of sweetened condensed milk, the one I cooked before. So it's 1 can for me. I mix it again. So now mine is done. I transfer the cake layer, the first one, onto my cake base. I add about half of the cream onto it. I just eyeball it. I just add some cream here and there. I sprinkle 40 grams of peanuts onto the cream. I sprinkle some caramel syrup on top of it. Then I add the second layer and repeat the same process. Like I add first the cream on top of it. I do almost all of it. Then I sprinkle again 40 grams of peanuts on the cream. And a drizzle of caramel on top of it again. On goes the third and last layer. I just drizzle a little bit of leftover cream on top of the third layer. I add 40 grams of chocolate to a little bowl. I add 1 teaspoon of coconut oil to it, then warm it up in the microwave and then stir it so it's nice and creamy. And then I sprinkle it on top of the cake. I like to make little stripes this time, so it's up to you what you like to do, but just put some chocolate on top of it. Now I add the caramel syrup, the same thing like the chocolate. I add just stripes on top of it. Now it's all done. It looks very delicious for me. I put it into the fridge for overnight, and then the next day it's ready to eat. Now I cut it so you can see it from the inside. I transfer 1 piece of the cake onto the plate so you can see it. Look how delicious. You can see all the layers. It's really good. I had to take this cake somewhere, so I didn't try it that day, but here I'm trying it the next day. You can see it's falling apart a little bit because I went into a peanut with my fork, so everything fell apart. But it is very delicious, very good. So I'm trying again and make sure I have everything on my fork. There you go. Look how yummy. So good. Thank you so much for watching. Maybe you want to watch this video next, or maybe this playlist. See you there. Bye.